I was 11 years old, standing in an empty house, holding two $1 bills, when my mom smiled and said, "You'll be fine." Then walked out the door to catch a flight to Europe. She didn't look back. She didn't leave food. She didn't leave a number. She just left me, with $2 and a locked door behind her. Before this story goes any further, take 1 second. Share this with someone who believes kids should never be left alone like this, and subscribe, because what happened after they came back still doesn't feel real to me. My name is Sydney, and that moment didn't start as fear. At first, it felt like a strange game. I told myself she'd be back in a day or two. I counted the hours on the wall with a pencil. I sat on the couch and waited, but night came, then morning, then another night. My stomach started to hurt, not from fear, but from hunger. I opened the fridge again and again, hoping food would magically appear. It didn't. Just a bottle of water and an empty shelf that smelled cold. By the third day, I understood something kids shouldn't have to understand. No one was coming. The house was too quiet. Every sound felt loud. I learned how slow time moves when you're alone and scared. I spent $1 on bread from a small store down the street, pretending I was shopping for my mom so the cashier wouldn't ask questions. I saved the other dollar like it was gold because I didn't know how many days a month really was. At night, I slept with the lights on. During the day, I stayed silent. I didn't tell neighbors. I didn't tell school. I told myself this was normal, that maybe this was a test. What I didn't know was that this silence, this fear, was shaping me in ways that would follow me for years. And while I was counting coins and days, my family was posting smiling photos from Europe, eating in places I couldn't even pronounce. But the real shock wasn't that they left me. The real shock was what they expected when they came back. The night before they returned, I stopped waiting. Something inside me went quiet, not calm, empty. I had learned how to move without making noise, how to stretch food, how to act normal at school while my hands shook under the desk. Teachers thought I was mature for my age. They didn't know I was just tired, very tired. When my mom finally walked back in a month later, her suitcase rolled across the floor like nothing had happened. She laughed when she saw how thin I looked and said, "Wow, you grew up fast." I didn't answer. I just stood there. She tossed me a chocolate bar like it was a joke and told relatives on the phone how independent I was. That word stuck in my head. Independent. That's what she called it. Not abandoned, not scared, independent. After that, things didn't get better. They got quieter. I stopped asking for things. I stopped explaining myself. When I needed school supplies, I found ways. When I needed food, I learned prices. I learned which day stores threw things away. I learned how to smile and say I'm fine so no one would ask questions that could cause trouble. At family dinners, my mom told the same Europe story again and again, and everyone laughed. I laughed too, because that's what you do when you realize no one is coming to save you. Years passed like that, slowly, carefully. I kept notes in a small notebook I hid under my mattress. Not feelings, numbers, ideas, plans. I didn't know what I was building yet, but I knew one thing. I would never need $2 again, not ever. While my family argued about trips and parties, I stayed invisible. And that was the mistake they made, because they thought silence meant weakness. They had no idea what that quiet 11-year-old was becoming. By the time I turned 18, I had learned how to disappear in plain sight. I left home without drama, no goodbye dinner, no hugs. My mom barely looked up from her phone when I told her I was moving out. She said, "Don't come back asking for help." I nodded. That sentence felt familiar. I had heard it before, just without words. I worked anywhere that paid fast. Late nights, early mornings. I didn't talk about my past. I didn't post online. I didn't tell friends what I was building. I kept everything small and quiet, the way I learned at 11. While others chased attention, I chased control. I learned skills people laughed at. I took jobs people called temporary. I saved every dollar like it could disappear tomorrow. Then something clicked. One small idea turned into a bigger one, then another. I failed more times than I can count, but failure didn't scare me. Hunger had already taught me worse lessons. By my mid-20s, money stopped being a daily worry. By my late 20s, it stopped being a topic at all. I dressed simple. I spoke less. I watched people closely, especially family. They still saw me as the quiet one, the independent kid. At gatherings, my mom would joke, "Sydney was always low maintenance." Everyone laughed. I smiled. They never asked what I did for work. They assumed it wasn't much. And I let them, because sometimes the best place to hide is right in front of the people who think they know you. Then one winter, my mom called me out of nowhere. Her voice was soft in a way I didn't recognize. She said there was a family dinner, something important. She said, "You should come. It's time we all talked." That word again, talked. I almost said no. Almost. But something told me this wasn't just a dinner. When I walked into that house, nothing had changed. Same walls, same smiles, same looks that slid past me like I didn't matter, until dessert came out. Until my mom stood up, cleared her throat, and said one sentence that made every eye in the room turn toward me. And that's when I realized they didn't invite me back to reconnect. They invited me because they needed something. My mom smiled in that careful way, the one she used when she wanted agreement, not answers. She said, "We're making some family decisions, and Sydney should hear this too." The room felt smaller. My aunt avoided my eyes. My cousin suddenly found the table very interesting. That's when my mom dropped it. She said they were selling the house. She said there was debt. She said things were tight. Then she looked straight at me and added, "Since you don't have much going on, you won't need anything." People nodded. Someone even laughed softly. It felt like being 11 again, standing there with $2 in my hand. My chest tightened, but my face didn't change. I asked one simple question. "So what do you need from me?" The room went quiet. Too quiet. My mom hesitated, then said it. She said they needed my signature. Just a small thing. Just paperwork. She said it would help the family. She said, "You understand sacrifice." That word hit harder than anything else. Sacrifice. I looked around the table and saw the same faces that ate well while I learned hunger. The same people who called my fear independence. I nodded slowly and said I needed to review the papers. My mom's smile froze for half a second. She pushed the folder toward me anyway. That's when I saw my name printed where it shouldn't have been. That's when I understood why they suddenly remembered I existed. I closed the folder without signing. I stood up, thanked them for dinner, and said I'd get back to them soon. My mom's voice changed, sharper. She said, "Don't be difficult." I looked at her and said something I'd never said before. I said, "I won't be." Then I walked out. Outside, my phone vibrated. Missed calls started piling up before I even reached my car. I didn't answer. I drove home, sat in the dark, and opened a different folder. One they had never seen. One that had my name on everything, because the truth was, that house wasn't the biggest thing they were about to lose. And they still thought I was the quiet one with nothing going on. The next morning, I didn't call them back. I went to my office instead. The one no one in my family knew existed. Clean glass walls, quiet rooms, people who waited when I spoke. I handed the folder to my lawyer and asked one question. "What happens if I don't sign?" He looked at me and said, "Then everything they planned falls apart." I nodded and said, "Good." 2 days later, my mom showed up unannounced. Same house, different energy. She didn't sit down. She didn't smile. She said my name like it was a warning. She told me I was being selfish. She said I owed her. She reminded me of all the sacrifices she made. I listened without interrupting. Then I asked her if she remembered Europe. She frowned and said, "Why are you bringing that up?" I told her because that's when I learned how to survive without help. That's when I learned how to build without permission. I slid a document across the table. She didn't understand it at first. Then her face changed. The color left. Her hands shook. The house they were trying to sell? It was already mine. Quietly, legally, years ago. Through a company name they never bothered to look into. The signature they needed wasn't to give me something. It was to protect themselves from losing everything, and they came to the one person they thought had nothing. She started crying. Real tears this time. She said she didn't know. She said she was proud of me. That word felt empty. I stood up and told her I wasn't angry. I told her I was done. I said she taught me the most important lesson of my life when I was 11. Never wait for someone to come back. I didn't kick them out. I didn't yell. I gave them time, time to move, time to adjust, the same thing I was never given. When I walked away, my phone stayed silent. No more calls, no more family meetings, just quiet. And for the first time since I was 11 years old, quiet felt safe. A few weeks later, the house was empty. No laughter, no dinners, no stories about Europe. I walked through each room once, slowly, not to remember the past, but to close it. I didn't feel victory the way movies show it. I felt clear, like something heavy had finally been put down. People ask me now how I became so strong. They think it was money, or success, or timing. It wasn't. It was a scared 11-year-old learning how to stretch $2 and trust no one. That kid never left me. He just grew smarter, quieter, more patient. I didn't take revenge the way they expected. I didn't embarrass them in public. I didn't post anything online. I let the truth speak for itself. Sometimes the strongest move isn't proving someone wrong. It's removing yourself from the story they thought they controlled. My mom tried to call once more after everything was done. I didn't answer, not out of anger, out of respect for the life I built without her. Some people teach you love. Others teach you survival. Both lessons last forever. If you're watching this and you feel invisible, ignored, or underestimated, remember this: silence can be power. Being overlooked can be an advantage. And sometimes the moment they realize who you really are is the moment you no longer need them to know it all.